Welcome to Random Talk. I hope that everyone is having a great start to your day. And if you are watching this Random Talk at the end of your day, I hope that you have had a fantabulous day. Yes, I usually think about hoping that people can hear this when they get started with their day. But my son told me that he had, watched the episode of Random Talk at the end of his day. And he was like, that did me some good, Mom. It got me through my day. So whenever you are watching this, I just hope that it will give you the little boost that you need for today. Now, today's topic is war zone. You heard me right, war zone. And the reason I'm choosing that topic for today's episode is because that is what I am feeling all within my spirit, within my mind, and with my emotions. Yes, I told you I will take you through my highs and my lows and my in-betweens. And I was at a low, last couple of weeks, but I finally got to a place that I will be able to talk to you about this. And what we're going to talk about today is my health. Like my health status, because it is starting to decline. And so I just want to let all of you know about it, because I did a Tuesday testimony, I think back in October or November of 2024, and I did it on SIBO, because those are one of my conditions that I have been diagnosed with, and that is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And it went much further than I thought it would have. People were sending me comments telling me, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving this information, because we never know what people are going through, and that is the purpose for this platform. And so now that I am in a mental space that I can do this random talk for you, I just want to go through a list of things. So if you are someone that is not interested in learning about health that I will be discussing today, this will not be the random talk for you, but this will be able to give you some tips on how to get through your struggles of dealing with your health. And then it's going to also teach you the things to be able to look out for when you're going to doctor visits, because we over here in the United States, not we, because I'm not a doctor, but the medicine that they practice is Western medicine. And so that means you have to fit in a scientific box. And so I did not fit in that box, which means that they had no clue what was wrong with me, because my body has never operated scientifically, and that is just real talk. And so that's what today is going to be about, and I hope that it will help someone. So I do my random talks off the top of my head. When you see me recording, I am not reading. I am speaking on what I know to speak about. But today I had to keep a bullet point list for myself, so I had to jot down each condition that I have, so that way I won't miss anything, because I want to make sure it helps some people. And then I have a few things to give you that I keep as my reminders whenever I want to be ungrateful and complain about my aches and pains. I keep things along the way that helps to remind me that you are not where you used to be, so you better give thanks every day. So let's go ahead and get started with the war zone. Now, I'm telling you, I've been going through it health-wise for a couple of weeks, but it really started about 2 months ago. My body was telling me and giving me symptoms, and I kept trying to put it off, and then it got to a place within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I started losing mobility, in my left leg, meaning that I was kind of stumbling and falling and losing my balance, and sharp pain shooting through my leg, and just the whole nine. And so I knew it was time to not put it off any longer, and I had to go ahead and do what I needed to do, because our health is very important. So even though we don't want to face it, because it's hard for me to face it, because I have been to doctors so much that if I never see another one again, I would be okay. But we still have to push ourselves to go ahead and be screened and seen by doctors. So if you are not seeing a doctor, start seeing the doctor. Go ahead if you can. Everyone is not fortunate enough to do it because they cannot afford it. But if you have the insurance, or if you are able to afford it, please, please, please make sure you pay attention to your health. Now, let's get into today's random talk. I'm going to give you a list of all the things that are going on with my body that makes me feel like I'm in a war zone. Take a listen. Okay, so here we go. Let me tell you why I'm feeling like I'm in a war zone, because I told you before, I've been having a lot of symptoms, and my body has been talking to me and letting me know, but I have been putting it off, because if anyone is familiar with triggers, medicine, health, that's my trigger, because it's just been recent since I was able to say that I am in good health, better health. And so whenever my body starts telling me that it's time for that to circle back around, because even though I'm better, the condition comes and it goes, and it took a toll on my body over the time, because it took so long for me to receive a diagnosis. And so whenever I start getting those symptoms, and it's telling me like, okay, you got to go get yourself checked out, it does something to me mentally. I have to tell you, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, just the whole nine. And I go into a war zone within myself. And so I couldn't record this when it first was happening because I needed to be in a good mental space to be able to tell you, to help you, and to sound motivational. Because if you would have heard from me back then, a couple of weeks ago, I would not have sound motivational. Now, let me tell you, I started losing mobility in my left leg, which means that there is something going on in my spine because I have degenerative disc. And if you don't know what that means, I'm going to ask you to look that up so I can be mindful of the time of this episode of Random Talk. But I have degenerative disc, and it is within my spine, up, down, and all the disc. And then I also have what you know to be SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And I have my notes because I want to make sure that I touch base on everything. But I feel personally, the doctors cannot say this because they don't want to be held responsible, but I feel like SIBO has been something that has been going on with me since I was a really little girl, from what my mother was explaining, because she was constantly taking me to doctors. And what it does is that when the bacteria is eating away at the bad stuff, it begins to eat away at everything good. And that means that it eats away at what's supposed to keep you healthy, if that makes any sense. And so that has caused me to lose the nutrients that I needed to be able to keep my body healthy. And that's what put me into the early stages of degenerative disc. And when I found that out, it was about almost 10 years ago. So I have SIBO. I also have degenerative disc within my spine. That means your disc begin to thin out. I have asthma. And I just want to because everybody doesn't know everything. So that's what this episode is about, to help people. So with asthma, my asthma is under control. Thank goodness, finally, it's under control. There was a time that my lungs were registering as an 80-year-old woman. And so they finally got my lungs back healthy enough. So now I take a steroid inhaler. So I have to use it in the morning and at night. And then I have my rescue inhaler that I use if I need rescue. Now, there was a time I was constantly having to use a rescue inhaler, and what that means is that your asthma is not under control. It is not balanced. And luckily now, with the help of my doctor, she is amazing. She has my asthma under control, and so I only have to use the steroid inhaler, not the rescue. So yay me, I'm so excited about that. So now you have the asthma, the SIBO, the degenerative disc, and then we're gonna move right on into ACDF. And I had this surgery back in 2015. Let me see if I can get the pronunciation together. It is anterior cervical discectomy fusion. That discectomy is a weird word to me because it just shouldn't be pronounced that way in my mind. But that is why they call it ACDF. And what that is that I have a metal plate. Right here, we all have a bridge that we're supposed to have in our neck. And that's what helps to give us space between our skull and our shoulders. And so when I didn't know what was going on, this was about 10 years ago, but I was losing mobility in the left side of my body. I felt like flames, like somebody lit me on fire from the back of my ear down to my toes and my foot. And then I would have sharp pains just up and down. Everything hurt. I could hear grinding when I turned my neck. And what ended up happening once they figured out, and I was referred to an awesome neurologist, but they did an MRI, which was a cervical MRI, and they found that my bone had collapsed. So I did not have a bridge, and I had been walking around that way for 5 years, no bridge in my neck. That's why I was having so much pain, because it collapsed on top of the nervous central cord that goes through your body that makes your body move. I also had bone spurs. They're like sharp teeth, and they were cutting into the cord, which was causing me to lose the mobility. It was a lot. My bones had fused themselves together. And so the way that they could help me with that situation, because I was so far gone, I had a surgery where they pulled my bone apart. I hope this is not too much information, but they had to snatch the bones apart because they fused themselves together. And then they added a metal plate, 2 screws in the top, 2 screws in the bottom, and it lifts. It gives me the space to imitate a bridge in my neck. And then I had to have bone marrow donated to me. So I'm so thankful to whoever the anonymous donor was. And that was that surgery. Luckily, that helped so much because it hurt. Everything hurt. My eyeballs, everything. So that is another condition that I have, the degenerative disc, SIBO, asthma, and then the ACDF surgery. That is something that kind of alters you, but it does not completely limit you, but it does create other issues to go on with your spine. Now, we're going to move into inflammation. I have inflammation. It is like an 18-letter word that they gave me. It starts with the letter T. I can't begin to pronounce it for you, but I have inflammation. She just said just consider it to be times 10 because it's where your tissues and everything are very inflamed. I'm allergic to aspirin, so I can't take medicine for it. So I just have to push through and tough through that. Now, we're going to go right on into the rest of the things that are going on with me. I hope I'm keeping this brief enough where you can get some information, but long enough where it makes some sense for you. So yeah, go ahead and tune in for the next piece of this random talk. Okay, so now that you know so many things that are going on with me, let's let the list continue. Now, I want you to remember that these things that are happening within my health, I feel like the underlying cause is due to SIBO, because SIBO, I tell you, it attacks your body, the bacteria. So what it does is that it prevents you from being able to get everything that you need for your blood count, your vitamins, and then it creates issues with your bones, because every time I was eating poison. You have to remember that. So I knew that when I put food in my mouth, the food was killing me, but I still needed to be able to eat, to be able to live, but I knew that eating was still killing me. It was a whole thing. That's why I said war zone. So let's dive into a couple of other things. Now, you know that I used to work in the school district, and right before I shifted out of the schools and I went over to the board office, let me tell you what happened. So for those of you that know me personally, you know this. Now, I was working with children that had issues, behavior wise, and there was this student that had some mental conditions, and he was not fit to be in the school, but before he could get to a mental hospital, he had to reach the age of 12. Nevertheless, I went in to help someone restrain a student, and it was two men, and I had never been injured with restraining, and I had been doing that for 8 years. Now, this student was kicking. He thought everyone was attacking him mentally. I went in and I got kicked in the knee just to sum that up, and I heard something crack, and I didn't think it was anything but me and these old bones of mine, but it turned out that I ended up with a fractured knee right at the joint. So where your knee has the joint, my knee began to, it was a fracture, and it also sprained the MCL. And what I learned is that you would be better off for the entire kneecap to shatter, because then you could get a knee replacement. But having a fracture, it means that it has to heal naturally. So that was 6 or 7 months of trying to heal fully. And I had to learn how to walk again. Let me tell you what I keep as a reminder. I keep these crutches as my reminder, because I need to know that whenever I want to be feeling some type of way about how my health is, I'm not where I used to be. So my knee was fractured, and I spent some time and I did some soul searching, and I was able to rethink my thoughts. And I said, okay, when I get back better, I have to find a different job, because I got to get out of the schools at that point. So that was something else. I was already suffering with cartilage in my knees deteriorating because I have degenerative disc. But not only that, I have osteoarthritis in my knees. Now, I have very little cartilage in the back of my knees, which creates a great deal of pain. And so that means that I get to look forward to having to have 2 partial knee replacements, but I will have the one for my left knee first, because that was the one that was injured. That is the one that's causing me the most pain. So that is yet something else that I have experienced. War zone, I'm trying to tell you. Now let me look at my list. We're almost finished. So the next thing is iron deficiency. And I want you to really pay attention to this, because I was misdiagnosed my entire life. This is not my assumption. This was told to me by my hematologist, which is a blood, the doctors that study blood. I was being diagnosed with having anemia, which means that I would have issues with my red blood cells. But in fact, I had iron deficiency, which means it's a nutritional deficiency, which makes sense because I was suffering with SIBO. So that means my body wasn't receiving the nutrients. Well, doctors were giving me iron pills all my life, and they would make me sick. I mean, absolutely sick. But my hematologist told me that it was almost like trying to fill a swimming pool with a cup of water. So every time they gave me those iron pills, it wasn't doing anything because I was depleted. So just think about my entire life, pretty much from my my early teens up into adulthood in my 40s, I was walking around with no iron at all. Zero. And so I had to end up beginning to get iron infusions, and then we had to see if my body could retain the iron. And the doctor found out that it was not that my body could not retain it, it was that my stomach was eating away at everything before it could produce the nutrients. So that is something else, iron deficiency. So I know that I have went through many things that are my underlying issues of health, but I hope it is helping someone. I hope it is being able to enlighten you on some of the health things. And remember, keep your journal. Remember, if you are not going to the doctor, go to the doctor, get yourself checked out. And also remember, everything is mind over matter. So if I could get through all of this for so long in my life, I know that you will be able to do it too. Now, for those of you that watch American football, it's not my favorite, but I can manage it. So if you watch American football, let me just tell you, we're getting in on the final ending of this random talk, I promise you. So now the next thing is that I'm going to tell you losing my sight. And this, I have a condition called astigmatism. And that means that my eyes cannot process the light. It doesn't know how to channel the light. I can see, but with or without glasses, but I wear glasses because it helps my vision to improve because the light distorts my vision. That is what astigmatism is. Now, my vision began to decline rapidly, and the eye doctor did not know why. She just thought it was my age, and I knew it could not be my age. So usually you get, an increase in your medicine every probably once a year, maybe. I was every 3 months. My vision was leaving me rapidly. These are my glasses that I originally got about 7 or 8 years ago, my first pair. Now, let me give you some more things. 1 second. These are the glasses that I went through over the course of years because the medicine in it, the lens, it had to continue to increase because I was losing my sight. I'm telling you, SIBO was killing me. I do not exaggerate. I want you to know it is real talk. So these glasses, I don't wear them now because after I went through the clinical trial and my health began to improve, I tried to wear some of those frames and I could not wear them. I felt sick to my stomach. So I got to go back to my old lenses. So I'm telling you, it is a great thing when you know that your health is improving. So this is the first pair, and these are my keepsakes. That's why I keep wearing them until I can get past my mental war zone, because they are a reminder to me when I see them on my face that there was a time that I could not see, that I could see, but my vision was leaving me rapidly. And so this is my reminder that my sight has been restored, not just visually, but on life too. Now we're going to move on to the next thing on my list. Let's see here. The vitamin levels. That is something else that SIBO does to you. It creates an issue with your vitamins. And so for my vitamin D, potassium, iron, those things that we have discussed, that's why they are like a roller coaster for me, because when that bacteria decides that it wants to creep back in on me, it eats away at all the good things. And so that's why I say war zone is like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I'm in a war zone. And right now with this bacteria trying to creep back into my life again, I am truly in a war zone, but I'm going to win the battle. So let's move on. We're going to talk about the weight loss in one moment. I promise you that we are coming to the end of this random talk, but I just thought about something else. So there was a time that I ended up having a great deal of pain and issues with my teeth. Now, I had never had a cavity in my life. I never had issues with my teeth. And all of a sudden, I started having issues with my teeth. And I would tell a close friend of mine at the time that my teeth feel like they're going to fall out my mouth. It wasn't like my teeth were hurting, but it just felt like my gums could not maintain the strength of my teeth, and so they began to discolor, just all types of things. Let me tell you, I ended up having to have a root canal. That was so uncommon for someone who had never had a cavity. It confused the doctors, let me just say. So that was one of the other things, that the bacteria was eating away at the good things and the bad things. I'm telling you, I was knocking on heaven's door. I was the walking dead. My doctors even told me that. And so then the next thing was, let me go off my list, okay? Weight loss. this is where we're coming into me telling you about the war zone and why in my mind I have been struggling, because I know when my weight drops, that means that my stomach is doing the job of trying to kill me softly. So my weight began to drop, and I dropped about 5 pounds. That's usually my fluctuation weight, where if I begin to, lose 1 or 2 pounds, the doctors aren't alarmed. But when my doctor saw about 3 weeks ago that I dropped 5 pounds, she knew then it's time for us to truly dive into this, and we have to start looking at it, catch it before it gets too bad. Now that may not sound good to you, but that is amazing for me, because my whole journey of this health issue was that no one knew what was wrong, because my symptoms were all over the place. So now at least all 5 of my doctors who communicate with each other, they know my symptoms now. So we know when it's time to be alarmed. And when my weight drops, we know it's to be alarmed. Now I can tell that the bacteria is coming back. It is not as bad as what it used to be. It's because when I eat, my food just kind of sits on my stomach and I can feel it. It doesn't digest. It takes longer to digest. And what that tells me is that my body is not going to get the nutrients that it needs, because it's taking all day for me to digest just one meal. So the weight loss has happened. That's my war zone. And then my white blood cell count, it has began to drop. That's my next war zone. And then last but not least, like I told you in the beginning, I started having pain, constant pain in my hips and then in my left leg. When I began to lose my leg began to be numb, and then it would have these sharp pains going from the lower part of my back down to my toes in my left leg. I know then it has something to do with my neurological system, that nervous system, because I knew it happened at the top of my neck. And so I have been fighting the insurance company to get this MRI for the lumbar, that's your lower part of your spine, to get that MRI. And I had to fight them on the day of my appointment, because all they had to do was click approve, and it was pending approval for a week. And don't give up to the end. That's what I'm about to tell you. I had to be on the phone and a live chat. I had both going at the same time, but I was like, I'm getting this MRI because I need to know why I'm falling and why my body is hurting so badly. And they approved the MRI 15 minutes before I was supposed to leave to go to my doctor's appointment. So don't give up. It's not over until it's over. And so the results have come back. I still have to go see my doctor, but I read the results, and what is happening at the lower part of my spine is what was happening at the top. So I have to go to the doctor to see what their suggestions are of what I can do. I'm telling you, war zone. Now we're coming to the end zone of this random talk. I'm thankful that you have tuned in and stayed with me this long. Now let me give you and leave you with a motivational piece of this. So as we close out on this random talk, I know that was a lot of information, but that is what's going on with my body. That is why I tell you war zone, because I do feel like I am at war right now, because I have to fight for my life one more time. Now, I am not as bad as what I was about 3 years ago when they gave me the diagnosis, but whenever something happens, whether it's abuse or anything that we experience in our life, something tragic, it is called a trigger. And so whenever I know that those signs are coming back, I go through things psychologically, because I remember how much pain I lived in every day. So I have to get myself together before I can talk to someone else about it. And when I started seeing the symptoms, and then they kind of hit me and crashed down on me about 2 weeks ago. And then when I went to the doctor and received my results back from the labs, and she even said, it is time for you to start back seeing all of your doctors, so that way we can combine our notes. It put me in a war zone mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So I just want to leave you with this. If you are someone that is suffering with sickness, you have to speak into yourself. Tell yourself every day, I'm going to get through this. Now, I know there are some illnesses where you know that you're not going to get through, but by the time that you have left on this earth, try to push through in your mind. It is mind over matter. And if you have a condition that is a condition that you have to live with, like I do, for the rest of your life, it is hard to accept. It is hard to digest, but you have to truly accept it. Accept it and understand that there's going to be a new version of you. I would love to still be able to do things and be out and about and be mobile like I want to, be physical like I want to, exercise like I want to, but I had to do some tweaks and some adjustments. Like I can't live lift over 4 pounds, because if I do, that nervous system, it goes haywire. So that is what this random talk was about. It is to let you know about my health journey, but it is also to let you know that I still sit in this seat with a smile on my face, trying to motivate you even through the struggles of my war zone of health. So now I know my blood cell counts, my white blood cells have dropped, my vitamin D has dropped, my bones are killing me, and my weight has dropped. But guess what the beauty of that is that I have the symptoms now. Before I had no symptoms. Let me show you something. I mentioned this one time before, that I knew that I was knocking on heaven's door because I would wake up suffocating out of my sleep. Now, my eldest son graduated in May of 2019. In November 23rd of 2019, these are my funeral arrangements and my obituary. I wrote everything out. I woke up out my sleep and I said, I'm not going to live much longer. And I did not want to leave it on my family to have to figure anything out. So I wrote it all out right here. That is when I tell you that I look at life so differently, because when you beat something like that, when you get another chance on life, that's why I tell you, we made it, because I've been living through a war zone, not only with abuse, as if that wasn't enough, but with sickness since I was younger, but it really kicked in at the age of 12 or 13, and I did not get a diagnosis until I was like 41. Do you understand me? So you can push through anything as long as you put your mind to it. And I just tell you, I'm going to get through this war zone. I'm going to beat this one time again. Once more, I will win the battle, and I want you to believe in yourself in the same way. So if you are suffering with any illnesses or any type of conditions, you speak life over yourself and you keep positive people in your circle. I know this was a long random talk, but I hope that it helps you the way that it has helped me, because I feel better with letting you know, my chosen family, what's going on, because I don't like to keep secrets from you. But I had to get my mind right before I got in front of this camera to tell you about everything, because that's still a sensitive subject for me. So yes, I look forward to getting this partial knee replacement on the left knee in the months to come, and then I will continue with the other things that I have to get checked out and worked out. But until next time, you love yourself as much as you deserve to be loved. You remember to subscribe to Novelty Woman Speaks, and as I tell you always,